This is Health Unfiltered, the podcast where we cut through the bullshit and get honest about fitness, nutrition, and mental wellness.
Nate, welcome. How are you doing today?
Good, good. Busy Monday off, so always good to close out a week. So glad to be done with this week and hopefully relax and recharge a little bit and press on to the next one. I'm actually participating in a Remembrance Day ceremony this weekend, so I'm pretty excited. It's not the right word, but humbled, I guess, is probably the better word. So Remembrance Day out in the UK, where I currently live for the next 3 years, is their version of Memorial Day. So I get to lay down a wreath to remember the people that have fallen. So I'm excited for that and the fact that we get to remember, even though it's not the best holiday, but it's good to remember the people that have passed.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, we got some really exciting topics to get into today. We're going to talk about mental fitness, kindness, and how life's too short and you should take more
Mm.
risks. But before we get into that, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Absolutely. So married, I got 3 kids out here in the UK, active duty Air Force. I've been in it about 16 years, had a multitude of different jobs. I've slung tires, sold cars. I'm now a hospital administrator. This is my third job in the Air Force. So I've done a little bit of everything, not great at anything, but okay at a lot of different things. So yeah, out here currently. I started a podcast called Mindforce to focus on mental fitness. I lost my grandma as a kid to mental health, and she was always the light of my world. And so it's always kind of, stuck with me. And I've always struggled with it a little bit as someone that was so happy and was so upbeat, was, struggling so much internally. And so I wanted to write a book. Figured, I think I talk more and better, hopefully, than I do write. So I started the podcast. Just wanted to keep having conversations. I think, I don't know what the golden solution is. I know in the veteran community, we lose 22 members a day, which is far, far too many. And I don't know what the answer is, but the answer I have is having the conversation, trying to break the stigma and trying to, get through it. And I think that comes with conversation. Conversation drives connection. And I think that's like the only way I can really think to solve it. It's not going to be a training. It's not going to be a down day. It's not going to be talking about it one day out of the year or things like that. I think it's connection. And I think that's how we get through it. So I hope through the conversations, the right guest connects with somebody, something I say might connect with somebody, but just something where someone is at that lowest point of their life and, they decide to make a better decision, instead of a permanent decision. So yeah, it's a little bit about me, married, kids, just enjoying life as much as I can. Been through a lot of difficult things in my life. I lost my dad. I lost both my grandparents. I've been through a divorce. I do some co-parenting with my first daughter's mom, and so we go through that. And so I bring those things up in like my leadership positions to my flights, and I hope that it allows people to connect with me. And I don't bring it up to, be a negative Nancy or anything like that, but I just want people to know like we're all human. We're all going through this crazy thing called life, trying to figure it out. There's no manual, there's no guidebook. We're just trying to figure it out. So I hope bringing up some of those things, someone can bring some of their problems and things to me. I'm not going to be able to solve them all. I haven't seen it all. I'm not saying that by any means, but hopefully being able to bridge the gap a little bit. But yeah, I think it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely I really connect with that, having conversations and talking to people, connecting with people. It seems like a lost art these days. So many people are on social media and just so isolated. People don't even want to pick up the phone and make a call anymore. They just want to send a text, and it's really sad. I feel like we really need that connection, even the physical connection, being with someone in the same room and having conversation is really important to mental health and just that aspect of community.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. It's crazy how much things have changed. Me and my wife the other day, before we moved out to the UK, we were bored and we're like, we should go to the store and try to get like a game for us. So we were trying to find something for Xbox or PlayStation or whatever it was. And we were at GameStop trying to find something cheap because, we don't have a lot of time with the kids and whatnot, but it'd be like, oh, it'd be fun. and everything you can find is one player across the internet. And so it's just interesting to me, like back in the day, even though we were playing games like on 64 or whatnot, we were sitting on the same bed, couch, or whatnot, and like to your point, in the same room and still connected. Like we were focused and we were using our imagination, and maybe we were tuned out a little bit because we were playing a game, but we were still together. And now to find like a two-player game, we really couldn't. We ended up getting Need for Speed and just taking turns who was driving. But it's like that's crazy. I can't find a game where me and my wife, and I know there are some. I think somebody have thrown out some recommendations for my friends and whatnot. But I was just surprised at like how difficult that was just to find a game where we could sit and play together. Like you just have to have internet connection. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember back in the day playing Nintendo, playing Mario, two players, and you got you and your friend right there, and if you're not playing, you're cheering your friend on, and you're taking turns, and you're doing it together, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, even the video games are isolating us now, but it's
Yeah, and the other thing I find is really interesting is how much and how, evil and terrible we are to each other on the internet, right? Like I always think of that quote from Mike Tyson, like no one's afraid about getting punched in the mouth anymore because these things that we say to each other, and especially with like the election just closing out, I see this stuff just going back and forth, and I don't think people would say this to each
you'd
other like
never
if they were
say
in the
that to
same
someone's
room.
face.
But it's like so easy now behind the keyboard. So I worry that that's gonna, continue to erode and divide us where, people can say just the most heinous things online. It's a rough place out there.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty wild. The Wild
Uh,
West. Before we get too far into it, I wanted to say, thank you for your service. We appreciate you out there doing what you do.
Absolutely. I do it. There's nothing else I'd rather do, and it's because everyone's worth it, you know?
Yeah,
Everyone that supports us is worth it. So absolutely. Thank you.
definitely. Can you talk a little bit more about what you do in the Air Force?
Yeah, so I have a very unique job. It's kind of interesting to me. Sometimes people that are civilian or don't have like much military in their family, they don't realize that there's a lot of different jobs in the Air Force. I think we have 128, which is a completely random number I just made up, so don't fact check that. But we have a lot of different jobs, and a lot of them are normal jobs. And so I know I had someone ask me, don't you just practice war? And I'm like, one, I don't know what that means. But
Mm,
two, like, no, there's finance and HR and a bunch of different fields. So my current field, I'm on my third one. I was air traffic control for 5 years, so telling planes not to hit each other. And then I went into contracting, which was setting up contracts between outside businesses and the Air Force. I did that for 3 years, and I used that business kind of stuff to move into my current one, which is a hospital administrator. So I run the backside of a hospital. So I love helping people. I just don't do blood and needles. So I pass out at blood and needles. So I love the thought of being able to help people. I just can't be on the front end of the hospital because I'd become another patient. So I run everything that's not patient care. So logistics and pharmacy and, buying stuff, bit, all the business side of the side of the house. So templates and, how many people are seen and all those things. So anything related to business is my side. And then right now I'm in a special operations wing. So I'm the readiness person in there, which gets even more complicated and weird, but I'm a medical planner. So I plan for really bad things to happen. Hope they never happen, but I have the plan just in case. So things with like in the Middle East, we plan for different contingencies. We have them on the shelf. We get them ready. Obviously, can't go into too much detail, but we have those plans ready for when certain things happen. If, one, two, and three happen, then we go over and, take care of the people and get out like American citizens or whatnot. But yeah, that's what I do currently. So it's a very unique position, one deep. I'm the only one of me in the entire wing of like 1,100 people. So sometimes it's a little weird. I don't have necessarily anyone to ask, so it's kind of a really unique position. It's cool because I get the freedom. I'm by myself, so freedom is good, but then I also don't get any help. So it's a weird love, hate. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing, but I love being closer to the mission because you are really close to the mission at the clinic, but you're still a couple people removed. You know that the people that you're taking care of are going out and getting the things done. But right now, if things were to kick off, in the Middle East or wherever, I would actually be talking directly to the medical teams on the ground. So it is cool to be cool's probably not the right word, but very connected and really rewarding to be that one step. I'd be providing assets and trying to find supplies, equipment, and transportation for the medical teams on the ground as like things are actively going down. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
it's
I just pray we never have to actually use any of these things.
definitely it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I like to say, you plan for the worst, but hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. We got, the PACE plan, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergent or emergency up for the last one. So you try to work through your stuff and hopefully you don't have to get to, the E in PACE. But yeah, I definitely enjoy it. I like being connected to the mission, being able to do exercise and things like that. Like one of my favorite things right now is try to set up trainings. Moving through those things, having my medical teams train in the back of the CV-22, which is the Osprey, the part airplane, part helicopter, crazy thing. So really cool to see them operating. So my team out here is basically an EMT or a paramedic, but instead of in the back of an ambulance, and it's in the back of a moving aircraft, which is pretty insane to be able to do the things they do while you're flying through the air. And the way that human body interacts and things in the air is completely different than being on the ground. So they're much smarter than I am. I'm always completely wowed by the things they can do. They can work in the dark when it's super loud. Everyone's, talking over different stuff, and they're still able to do the math for, how much your body weight is, how much medicine they have to draw up. It's just so much math and thinking and, under all that stress. I can't imagine. I love seeing them work though. It's awesome to see them get it done.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's
So, what do you do for fun out there in the UK besides play video games?
so for the most part, just hanging out with the family, with the kids and wife and whatnot. We try to keep the kids active and things like that. So we just finished up football and cheer. We were lucky enough for football and cheer to be at the same location, which was like the first time. Usually the boy has to go one direction and the girl has to go another direction on
Right.
different days, and it's just pure chaos.
Oh
But
yeah.
this one, I think they did a really good job. They had the cheerleaders cheer for the football team,
So
so they were at the same
is that
location.
American football or soccer?
Yeah, yeah, American football. Yeah, it is
Cool.
interesting. Being in the UK, we came from Japan a year ago, and it's like, oh, cool,
Hmm.
it's English, and then it's like English, but it's not English at the same time. There's sometimes like I get in the middle of conversations and I just get caught up because the words are a little bit different. Biscuit and chips and fries and buggy and golf or shopping cart and all those things. They're like close, but it almost takes like a second for your brain to process. So sometimes when they're talking really fast, I'm like, okay, which one is that? But it is fun. I'm glad we're able to keep up and shop and things like that. Was one thing that was pretty difficult in Japan. I think I bought it was supposed to be toothpaste, or I thought it was candy and it was toothpaste. It was something like that. It had fruit on the package. I was like, oh, it's fruit. It must be candy. And I
Hmm.
was like eating toothpaste. So it's rough when you can't read the labels entirely. Google Translate like said like rising phoenix or something. I was like, that's not what that is.
It's not
It's
helpful.
crazy. Not helpful at all. Not a phoenix. I
Yeah,
don't know what it is, but I know it's not a phoenix. But
got it.
yeah.
So let's get into mental fitness. We talk a lot about physical fitness on this podcast, but not too much about mental fitness. What's a mental workout?
So I think anytime you challenge your mind and your brain, and that's the one thing like on my show, and I hope to convey is why can we not talk about mental fitness in the same way that we talk about physical fitness? It's just so odd to me. Like being in the military, walking around in or out of the gym, you'll hear someone talking about I'm working on bis and tris, and I'm doing, 2 by 10. I'm doing this specific workout, but I just don't think that really comes into play when we talk about our minds, which is just odd. Like the brain is another part of the body. You think we'd be able to communicate the same way. So, hey, I tried yoga, I tried meditation, I walk through nature, and those should come up like, hey, I tried this. Do you want to try? Do you want to come with me? And back to community and things like that. But it's just this stigma that's gone on for so long. And I think it's getting better as we go. Like, I mentioned my grandma. I think like we moved on from that generation and we're getting better, but we just have to keep having these conversations. But I think it's just maybe harder to quantify or we don't know as much. But anytime you're learning or reading or doing anything where you're pushing, yourself into stress, and I think, that's another thing we probably need to work on is, there's healthy stress. Stress yourself a little bit, you get on beyond it, and then you're like, hey, I conquered that and I can do a little bit more. But I think anytime you take on, a little bit more than you think you can and you get past it, you're really, having that mental fitness. And that's why, I really wanted to hone in on that name for the show because it's an ongoing thing. I feel like mental health, which is, what I was initially going to name it, is a building, it's a psychiatrist, it's a thing. You go and it's like the worst day of your life, or, it has some negative connotation to it. And it's like fitness is ongoing. You would never go to the gym and, jump on the treadmill one time. You're like, I'm good. I'm never doing cardio ever again. Like that doesn't even make sense. And like we have our annual PT test. Like you're not gonna stroll in, like jump on the treadmill once, like I'm good. Like you actively go to the gym, and even when you fill out like your survey before you go to your PT test, it's like, have you routinely worked out, 3 days a week for at least 30 minutes or whatever it says. They want to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to is leading up to that. You have it once a year, but you're not supposed to prepare once a year. And so yeah, it's just interesting to me. I hope that we can get closer to being open and communicating about our mental fitness and really not even, I guess, not even mental fitness, just fitness, body, mind, and all those things. So yeah, I think trying something new and, stepping out of your comfort zone is really important for, us as humans, but definitely in that mental capacity. Like one thing I have is I'm deathly afraid of like Alzheimer's and losing my mind and things like that. Uh, my grandpa had some issues with that as he departed, and for some reason, I'm okay with my body breaking down. It seems natural to me, I guess. You get your walker, you get a wheelchair, like you slowly break down, and that seems okay. Not that I'm like super okay with it, but I'm at odds or at terms with it, I guess. But losing yourself in your own mind is way more terrifying to me. So I've tried to continue doing things. So like I was stationed in Guam, I got my scuba certification out there, and I was working on a skill and learning and getting the book and combining reading and like a hands-on skill. And so I moved to my next base in Southern California, Edwards Air Force Base in the middle, the Mojave Desert in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
And so I went down to Paris and got my skydiving certification. And so I started this thing where I'd like to work on a skill, if it's mountain biking, if it's whatever it is. I think that's going to be what I'm going to do going forward. Something that combines a physical ability with something I'm learning and getting better at and, sucking a little less than the day before. But my thought is if I keep the mind active, I'm hoping to push off some of those mental things later on, which was probably way longer than what you asked for. But
Yeah, no worries. That mind body connection is really powerful. It's really incredible. I mean, even just going to the gym can do so much for your headspace, make you feel like you have accomplished something. And just working those muscles, they release those hormones and you make you feel better too. It's really incredible. But you mentioned a few things that you can do to work on your mental fitness. Are there any like daily practices that you recommend people try to do to incorporate mental fitness?
yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that we need to do as humans is to slow down. I think it's something that isn't talked about all that much. I feel like we have fast food, we have Google. You can get any answer you want in the entire world in like a matter of seconds. We used to have to go to the encyclopedia and like look it up, but everything currently is faster and faster and faster, which I mean, there's good things about technology and AI and things like that. There's always good and bad on both sides of those, but I think that there's some element of slowing down and reflection that we need to do. So, I mean, I think that's a personal thing. So I guess whatever matches with you, if that's journaling, reflecting. But I think we have a lot of anxiety and a lot of problems because we're trying to go faster and think of all these things. So I would recommend some type of quieter time in the morning, if that's reading, coffee, whatever it is to kind of get your day started. And then I really try, I don't do it perfectly, but I tried it my best is to close down the day and the week. And so I look at my calendar and saw what I got done and what I still need to get done. I actually saw it from my first sergeant, which is like our HR person. He did a really amazing job. So he'd print off his calendar every week and then look at the tasks that he got done. And then the best part of what he did, I thought, was reflecting on why he didn't get what he needed to get done. Was it a lack of time? I need to, set aside more time. Did I not prioritize well enough? Then I need to do that. Did I not get, the visibility that I needed? Do I need to bring this higher up in the leadership, bring this up for, more action? I can't do it at my level. So if I just put it on there every week, it's still not going to get done. And I think that pausing and reflecting was really powerful. And so I thought that was really cool. So I would recommend something to open and close the day. I think that helps you sleep and process. And because if not, I mean, I know my mind is way more active than maybe it should be. And so I'm trying to think of all those things. But I've noticed if I close it down, put it in a box, and feel some level of contentness because I thought about it and, close it off. I love scratching things off. The lists are so great, but I think
Right.
that's super important is opening and closing, and then some type of reflection of some kind because it's like faster, but sometimes go slower, sit and think about things.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's moving at such a fast pace these days. It's hard to take a break and slow down. I think that is really important. I like to meditate in the morning to try
Mm.
to clear my mind. Sometimes I'll wake up and have a lot of things that I want to do throughout the day, and it makes me feel really overwhelmed. But taking just 10 minutes just to sit down and just try to meditate and focus on my breathing, I've found has been really helpful. And then
That's
you mentioned
interesting.
journaling, just making some notes about your day and just how you're feeling and what's going on can be helpful to look back and reflect on.
Absolutely. So for the meditation, I'm curious, like I think a lot of people think of it and they're intimidated or they think it's not for them or things like that. W- How did you start or, what was that transition to like, I should do it to actually doing it? And how did you look up some routines or how did you go about that for people that do want to get into that?
Yeah, I never saw myself as someone that would meditate. And about 5 years ago, my therapist recommended it. I was just dealing with a lot of stuff at work, a lot of stress, um, and they mentioned it, and I was in a place where I was open to new ideas and trying new things. So I found an app, the Calm app, and
Mm,
I tried it out, and I did the daily calm, which is a guided 10-minute meditation every day. It's different, and they kind of guide you through it and tell you what to do. And afterwards, I just felt like I had more mental bandwidth and
mm.
more capacity to deal with things that came up throughout the day. So I really liked it. So I just kept doing it. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And then I started doing just the more free form meditation. And there's all kinds of different scenes you can listen to. You can listen to like ocean scenes or forest scenes. I really like the mountain one.
Mm.
And it's just like birds chirping and just really makes you feel relaxed. And um, yeah, I've been doing it for a few years now, and I kind of got off of my routine doing it every day, but I made a point to get back into it 2 months ago, and I didn't stop and meditate today because I was worried about the fire. There's a huge fire going on here in Southern California near where I live, and the winds have been crazy. So I've been monitoring the fire and keeping an eye out to see if we need to evacuate or not. So I didn't stop and make the time to do it today. I might do it later this afternoon. but I try at least 10 minutes every day. And I feel like just the sense of accomplishment and the idea of taking those few minutes for myself just to help myself is really important. You know, self-care is something that people talk about a lot, but they don't really do it a lot. And I was just on a flight the other day, and they were doing the pre-flight speech, you know, where the stewardess, they hold the seatbelts and they hold up the oxygen mask and they say, you know, if the cabin depressurizes, put your own mask on first and then help others. And I feel like that's a great analogy for self-care. It's like you have to help yourself so you can be there to help other people. And it's it's way more important than people realize.
Yeah,
But
I always think of the analogy. They say you can't pour out an empty glass, and that's one that's always good for me because I love a good visual. If you're just, giving yourself to everyone else and your glass is completely empty, when you do need to pour into someone and, help somebody, you're gone. That's it. And I think there's definitely something really important about nature. I think that's something that's super important that you touched on. I think with, we touched on briefly like modern technology. We have internet and lights and we can sit inside all the time. We have, video games again that we could never leave the house. But I think like getting outside is super important too. Living in Guam and a couple other places that are just so scenic. I would just feel so much better just walking outside and not necessarily doing anything or
mm,
scuba diving or whatever it may be, but the view of a sunset or the sound of the birds chirping, that is just recharging. Like I know some people like I'm not an outdoorsy person, but I don't know. I almost feel like that's to our core, caveman or wherever. Like we used to just live
yeah,
outside. Now we can be inside all the time, but I think you need to get outside.
yeah, I don't think it's good for us to be inside all the time. I'm
Yeah.
a certified diver too, and it's really incredible when you get down there under the water. It's a whole nother world down there, and it's really peaceful. And you know, it really relates to getting back into nature. You know, here in Southern California, out by Catalina, we have the kelp forest, and
Mhm.
you can go dive and swim around and see all the fish and the crabs and stuff, and it's really incredible. Have you heard of forest bathing?
Huh.
I it's something I think it comes from Japan. It's just the practice of getting out in nature amongst the trees and just like absorbing their energy and just clearing your mind. And it's kind of like what you're talking about, just getting outside. And I think that can be super helpful for our mindset as well.
Yeah, Japan does an amazing job of city planning. Sometimes I wish we did a better job. Like we kind of bulldoze everything and make it like a concrete jungle. But
Hmm.
even in Tokyo, where you have 29 million people in one city, which is insane to think about, because in all of LA metropolitan area, there's like 10 million. So there's three times as many people as LA metropolitan in one city in Japan. But they have still set aside like parks next to skyscrapers. I remember the first time I visited from Guam. I flew over there and these massive skyscrapers, like 80 floors tall or whatever they are. And then you walk out and there's like a full green forest because people on their lunch break and whatever get out there and get rejuvenated. The air is fresher. Like, oh, there's just something about a good, good walk in the forest. Forest bathing. That's a good one. I got to keep that in mind. You just feel better.
You do. It's hard to explain, but it works.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
So we talked about some things you can do to help with your mindset. Are there any other small shifts that people can make to help work on their mindset?
Yeah, I think another thing that's super important is like the words you choose. I know that it's a very small and, minuscule thing, but I've heard from different people. I think of like Simon Sinek. He talks about like interviewing people, which I thought was interesting. He interviewed people that were going in to a board meeting, and then he interviewed people that were up for the Olympics, and he interviewed the people for the board meeting, and they're like, "I'm so nervous." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Can you explain like your symptoms to me?" And he's like, "Oh, my palms are sweaty, my heart is racing, I feel like this tension. And then he asked the Olympians, he's like, "Oh, how are you guys feeling?" They're like, "Oh, we're excited." And he's like, "Oh, can you explain your symptoms?" They're like, "My palms are sweaty and my heart is racing." And so the physical is exactly the same, but how they're looking at it is completely different. The bored person maybe didn't prepare enough, or, is nervous about what people are going to think. And the Olympian has worked their entire life to get to this stage. They're ready to get out there, try their best, like prove themselves. And so it's interesting to me that something so small, nervous versus excited, those are completely different. The symptoms in the human are exactly the same, but how they're looking at it is really important. So one thing I try to always push out is perception. And obviously it's right, easier said than done to look at things like all rosy all the time, but try to look at it from a different perspective if you can. One story I like to tell, because I love stories. I feel like we learn so much more from like real life. I mean, obviously you learn from books and things like that, but when things happen to you, I feel like you remember it so much more. So I was taking my son to daycare. I was driving in, trying to park, and this car had parked over the line. And I was like, this person is so inconsiderate. Like, I can't believe they don't think about me. I had all these negative thoughts. I had just started my day. I think I just woken up, gotten him over there. I was thinking all these ill things about this person. I go inside, I drop my son off, and I come back to my car, and the car that was there had left. And I inadvertently didn't know. I stepped over because and so the next person that was going to pull in thought of me as the inconsiderate person, and I didn't mean anything of it. So in an instant, I went from, you know, I'm mad at this person, thinking so ill of them, to being the person in a matter of seconds.
You
And so I
bastard.
remember thinking, like, it's all perception. I
Yeah.
don't know what they were going through. I don't know if they were late. I don't know if the kid was screaming in the back seat as they pulled in, or maybe they did the same thing I did. Maybe the person before them was over the line and they sidestepped the same way I did.
Hmm.
But that was just really a good reminder to stop and think like there's no ill intent. I mean, if someone does something to you deliberately, that's a whole separate thing, but just try to, keep a perception because it's so quickly how it can go from one shoe to another. You don't know what's about to happen. So I think perception is a really big thing. Trying to keep that in mind. Easier said than done, absolutely. But think about the words you say, and self-talk. I think that plays right into that because that person that is nervous or excited, if you're saying excited in your own head, it's gonna be excited. You are going to be excited because you are telling yourself that. I forgot who was talking about it, but they did research and they had someone in a MRI machine and they were looking at the different parts that lit up in their brain, and they were looking at the parts that lit up during their brain during a person thinking of a fight with another person, an argument of some kind, or an actual fight occurring, and the exact same parts light up. So it doesn't matter if you're thinking about the thing or if it's actually occurring.
Hmm.
So if you're worried, oh, my boss is going to be mad tomorrow, or I'm going to need to fight with Sally, and this and that, like you are living through it twice. So if it's a negative thing, like obviously prepare and do the things that you need to, but try to think of that as you're living through these terrible things twice. If you're ruminating over it all night the night before and then having the fight the next day, then you've just fought twice in your brain. So try to think of that as, you have that self-talk and, don't live through bad things twice if
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing how much the brain can affect just the way you think about things. I really love what you said about replacing the word nervous for excited. I use that a lot when I'm talking to friends or family and they tell me I'm so nervous about this thing coming up. And I'm like, just tell yourself you're excited. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this. And it's like you said, it's the same exact feeling of nervousness. Your heart's fluttering, you're stressed out, but you also kind of feel the same when you're excited for something. And it can be just a subtle, the way the words that you use to talk to yourself can make such a big difference. It's really incredible
Yeah, I
what you've been
saw
able to
one
find.
the other day, I forgot if it was a meme or maybe it was a TikTok or something, but the person was talking about like throughout their whole day or their morning routine, they were saying, I have to go to work. I have to make breakfast for the
Mm-hmm.
kids. I have to. And then the person stopped. I don't remember what caused them to stop, but they thought of like if they lost their kids, that'd be the worst thing ever, of course. But then it would be, I get to clean up their mess. I get to make this breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just a minor detail of one word, have to get to. But it's like, think about all the people that, haven't been able to have kids or have struggled with that or whatever it may be. If you just, back to the perception, if you just think of it from someone else's shoes real quick, they're not thinking of oh, I have to make this kid breakfast. Like they would love to make that kid breakfast. They don't even have the kid. They can't. And that's got to be a whole painful thing in itself. I can't imagine, but yeah, have to and get to. That is self-talk is important.
Yeah,
It's
it
powerful.
definitely is. I think having a gratitude practice can really help
Mm.
people with that. Just taking a few minutes every day, either write it down or just think about what you're grateful for in your life. Even if it's just to be alive, just to be healthy, just anything that you can think of to be grateful for can really help you with that mind shift and be more optimistic throughout your day and look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got people with disabilities and wheelchairs, long list of different stuff. You got up, you have two legs, you're, relatively healthy. I'm sure we all have some ailments here and there, but yeah, I think almost every day, just, being relatively healthy and having family and a place to stay. I mean, you have things right off the bat, every day to be able to be grateful for. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just waking up, like you said, and that's one thing you can be
Yeah,
grateful for.
already.
And so
It's
I
an
know
easy
you're
one.
you're you're big on kindness. I kind of wanted to get into that. What's the kindest thing someone's done for you that's made a lasting impact on your life?
Oh, the kindest thing. Um, oh shoot, I don't know. That's tough. Um, the kindest thing. So I think the best story would probably be so my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, lung cancer, which was super frustrating because he didn't smoke. Um,
Mm,
And so I was stationed in Guam at the time. I had to fly around the world to get home before he passed away. And it's one of the things that it's a story for me. I don't like love to share it, but I do share it from time to time. And so what happened was I got the Red Cross notification. So for the military, if you get this notification, you get to like kind of go on leave and take care of the things you need to, and then come back, and then they take care of like the rest, the processing. So I was in Guam. I get the Red Cross notification in the afternoon, and there's only one real flight out to the West Coast to get back to Portland, where I'm from. And so it's 6 a.m. every day. And so I get it in the afternoon, I go home, I pack, and I fly and race against this clock before, he passes, want to be there, have that last moment with him. And I just shifted my complete focus and everything to the thing that was important at the time. Like, I probably should have thought more about the two dogs I had and the house and the Harley I had out front and the things that were going on, but I didn't. I just left. And it was really not until I got all the way back, I was really able to stop and reflect, the quiet times and being able to reflect. When I came home, I had my dishes washed, my floor was mopped. I had a picture of a drawing from one of my coworkers drew my two dogs and the adventures they had while I was gone. And it's just one of those things where like I've never worked like too many civilian jobs. I had a few, but I believe in the military. This is just something where we take care of each other to a different level. I think if I worked for Amazon or Google, like would someone have watched my house? Like absolutely. They would have kept my house from burning to the ground, house set, very basic. But to come home to a clean house and a comic on my fridge and these people aren't even necessarily my best friends, my drinking buddies. They're just people in the unit that knew I needed to focus on something else. Something else is more important than work, more important than my house. And so it's not until I get all the way back around the world, 28 hours or whatever those trips are, they're super long because of the multiple layovers and whatnot, and blowing through massive amounts of time zones, where I realized how important that was, that I could just pack and leave. That like kindness is something I think that should be everywhere. And it goes back to not best friends, not drinking buddies. I'm not saying you have to have the exact same interests and likes, because we're all different. We all do different stuff. But when someone asks for something, or even not even ask, like I didn't even ask, I just knew that I needed to go. And that was the focus. They knew and they took care of what they needed to. So I don't know who planned it, how they got together. I don't really know any of those details. I probably should go back and, really thank everybody and, circle back. It's been many years now. But yeah, I think that's that kindness where we should just be helping each other. And I know we need to do it a lot in the military, but I don't think that, definitely stops there. It goes beyond there where, we have difficult things like deployments and TDYs and we're traveling, things like that. You should be able to pick somebody's kid up or drop somebody's dog off at the vet or, whatever it may be. We need to be there to help each other and take care of that. And I think that just ripples out so much. I mean, we talk about pay it forward and things like that. And sometimes those are cheesy and
Mhm.
cliche. And sometimes I think I say too many cliche things. But I truly feel that, like, if you pay it forward, like that ripples out, two, three, or 10 times. So if you just take care of someone with something as easy as a smile or these other things that are free, like they're gonna, then smile at two or three other people. And so I think kindness is just super important. And I feel like we're being meaner and meaner to each other as we talked about like on the internet and things like that, but kindness is super important. So I have had a few jobs in the military that potentially make more money in the outside, and so that's a common question I get, like, why are you still here? But it's stories like that where I feel like I need to stay, take care of people, be in this to really take care of each other and things like that. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, I do it for the people. And, again, maybe that's cheesy, but that's really how I feel. I'm here for the people. Money's definitely not everything. And I'd rather see some people accomplish their goals or, I'd honestly rather be there on someone's worst day. I've had to pick somebody up from a DUI and some other, things that weren't good, domestic violence and things like that. I was glad, and that's probably not the right word, but to be there, I'd rather someone be there to on that worst day, and I'll be there on that worst day. I'll be there hopefully on your best day if we get some goals accomplished and some things you never thought possible, but also be there on the worst day. That's what I signed up, being a leader and being in those positions and whatnot. So I'll be there on the day where we got to report in and we're wearing, fancy clothes and we're in trouble and or the days where you're getting awards and promotions. So I just hope we can all be there for each other.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I mean, just to know that, you were going through all that stuff with your dad and all the stress that the travel, can bring on and to come home to a clean house and the drawing, knowing that the dogs are well taken care of, that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
I think I left without dog food too, so I think they picked that up too. It's just crazy. I just didn't think about anything, and that was the way it should have been. They knew what needed to happen, so thankful
yeah,
for all of them.
definitely. And random acts of kindness can be really powerful too, just to hold the door open for somebody or, put a shopping cart away for someone, an older person, whoever it is, someone with kids or struggling. That's can do a lot for them. I mean, they might be having a horrible day and you just do something really small like that, it can really turn it around. And then you feel good about yourself too.
Yeah, I like that one use that it says like you don't know what any the battles everyone else is fighting or something.
Yeah.
That's a misquote, but yeah, that one's always so good to me because you don't know. Maybe the
Yeah.
shopping cart was like the last straw for someone and they, were gonna, lose their mind after that. Who knows? So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. And they like restore their faith in humanity.
Mm-hmm. They don't
The
go on a
shopping
murder
cart test
spree.
is real. Yeah, you don't know. So that's why you got to give the candy bar.
Right. So
Yeah.
how can acts of kindness change the way that we see the world?
Mm. I think, like I said, restores our faith in humanity. I think sometimes we watch the news And everything on the news, if it bleeds, it reads, as they say, it's all bad stuff and school shootings and just these terrible events that, draw people in. That's what they like to talk about. But there's a lot of good stuff happening around. So I feel like if you fill yourself with the media and, social media and the algorithms that are going on now, if that's the stuff you're looking at, it'll just keep showing you negative things. And so I think you got to break that and get out. I remember during COVID, there was a lot of mental health minutes and things like that where people were isolating and looking at the same negative stuff and looking at the numbers of deaths every day. And you got to break out of that and get that positive feeling back. And I think you got to fill yourself up with that. You got to continue to push through that. And, not that you want to just have everything rainbows and, rosy all the time. I think you need to be prepared with some sense of realism. But I think that totally shapes the way you see the world if you think everything's bad all the time, which we talked about perception and, that inner talk and, things like that. If you're saying it sucks, it sucks, it sucks every day, then you're going to reinforce that it does suck. So I think getting out there and getting that kindness and seeing it really restores our faith. Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah, that story of your coworker, helping to clean up your house when you were gone. Um, are there are there other ways that we can help others through tough times?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is being there for people and not waiting for there to be really bad situations. I think that again, we're all too busy, right? We're rushing, we're going too fast, but I think we need to be there for each other every day. So when there are the big events, and hopefully we don't have too many of these large, events like a death in the family or things like that, but I think we got to be there before. And I think that's one thing we struggle with the mental health aspect of it is, we wait for it to be like the worst day. We wait for it to be whatever. And so I think you have to have that relationship and that connection. I think we talked about connection earlier. Connection's super important. You want to know who you can talk to. I remember when my dad did pass, I don't know what the number is, but I have like 600 people in my phone or some crazy number. Um, but I couldn't think of anybody I actually wanted to call. And it was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life where I was at the lowest I'd ever been and I wanted to connect with somebody, but I felt like I'd burden someone, I'd be bothering, they don't want to hear me. And so that really, bothered me and it still does this day. I think I should do a better job of having deeper connections and relationships with people. I think I'm fairly friendly. And so what I normally do is I have a lot of, surface level friends. I know a lot of people. Know a lot of names, but I think we all need a circle of 3 to 5 or whatever that number may be of the real deep ones. You can know a lot of people, but I don't know if you necessarily have the connection that you need. And I think you need those ride or dies, or I don't know if that's the popular term now. These young kids are saying, but yeah, I think that's what's really important is having those people that you can go to where you are on that worst day. You shouldn't have to scroll through your phone and like feel like you're bothering someone. There should be, quick dial right there, those top three or whatever. Hey, do you got 8 minutes? I need you to, save me from, what's about to happen and someone to be there. So I think deeper connections and that happens over time. And I think that's one thing we went back to, going faster and busier and things like that. Like that has to be there. That rapport has to be built up. So it's small, coffee runs, it's small things over time. And, you can't like become someone's best friend overnight. And so I think pouring into people is super important. I think sometimes we get into this transactional thing. It's like, what can you do for me and things like that. And I wish we could get more into just spreading light and kindness to everyone. And eventually it will pay itself back. It's not like one for one. It's not directly. You don't know if it'll be for years. It definitely comes back, but I think too often we want to see the exact exchange and, quickly and, back to the fast food and the internet. Like we want this, quick or instant gratification. And that's not how it works. Like just put the positivity, put the kindness into the world. It'll definitely come back. But yeah, just don't anticipate or don't wait for it. Just put it out there and it'll work itself out. It always does.
Yeah. Maybe just pick up the phone, call someone, just ask them how they're doing, just check in, and just letting them know that you're there for them if they need something, if they need someone to talk to, like you did. I think that can be really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we live about 80 years, and I just turned 40 this year. And when you're a kid, it feels like time goes so slow. You know, a week is forever, and it's the older you get, it just seems like time just keeps moving faster and faster. And it seems like, we just don't have enough time on this earth. And so that was something I know that you wanted to get to, the topic of life being too short. And so I wanted to ask you, what have you started doing, after you realized that life was too short?
Yeah, absolutely. So this obviously plays into losing my dad. He was 50 and he had set aside money for my mom and she's given or she has that now and things like that. But it's one thing that's just always kind of bothered me is we wanted to do a trip. We had money set aside. We could have done a trip. But his thought was, hey, I'm just going to beat it and then we'll move on. Fought the cancer for a couple of years, ended up, not winning, and then, his body deteriorated and we didn't get to, do that. And so like
Yeah,
looking back on that, should just went to Rome, the Colosseum, the Eiffel Tower, like throw a dart at the map, like doesn't even matter. Like let's
yeah.
just go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something where, I've always been an optimist. I've always been kind of bubbly, but that's something that just is like super core to me now is like with the kids and whatnot. And obviously everything in balance and whatnot. So not too extreme. But if it's like a Thursday night and it's like, hey, do you want to get ice cream? And it's like, well, no, we shouldn't because cavities or money or whatnot. Like to a certain extent, I'm like, who cares? Like, let's just get the ice cream. Like, if it's not going to bother anything, it's not going to wreck anything. Like, let's just do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I hate to go like YOLO or like, don't blow all your money. Don't go crazy. I mean, still within balance. Everything I think in this world is about balance, which could probably be a whole separate episode by itself. But yeah, I kind of lean into that. So we take the trips or we, go do something late at night when the kids should be at school tomorrow or whatnot, or we let them skip a day. And I don't know, I just don't worry about things as much because life is just too short. So watching him, my dad go to work every day and put money into his retirement and do all the responsible things, which you absolutely should, not saying don't, but to not capitalize from it is just painful, didn't take the trip, didn't do anything. Super, glad and helpful, that he did because my mom is pretty squared away now. And so I appreciate it to a certain extent, but it does make me reflect back and we should have just done something. Like don't worry about the smaller things. And so, we play games too late, or, I think we do a lot more family activities. We love board games. We have, we just moved, so you got to do your inventory. We have like something crazy, like $8,000 worth of games or something crazy at full face value, which I mean, they're definitely not worth that anymore, but they make you like look them up on Amazon. So we're like looking them up and making a spreadsheet. We're like, geez, we have a lot of games, but we have a lot of fun with that. And so I think that goes to, a lot of different stuff, relationships, jobs, a lot of different stuff where people are like, I don't know if I can, you know, leave this person. I'm only slightly unhappy, or I don't know if I can leave this job because I'm only slightly unhappy, or what. Life is only so long, and you don't know if you're gonna like step into the road and get hit by a bus, or what's gonna happen. And
Right.
so if you're, inconvenienced or not living your best life and not in the sense like I feel like social media influencers are and like, spending too much money and going crazy. Not that kind of best life, but true best life. If you're unhappy at work every day, and maybe you have a goal to like accomplish, something later, so you're saving money and, that's I think that's a little bit different. But yeah, try and evaluate like these slow, painful situations where it's just slightly inconvenient, and you're just gonna trudge along for like 30 years and look back and be like, I should have just left. Like, rip the band-aid off. It's not going to be fun to leave the relationship, start over, have a mattress on the floor by yourself or whatever the situation is. But geez, just think back like, 2, 5, 10 years later where you are in the place that you were always meant to be and you are happy and whatnot. So, I mean, my advice, rip the band-aid off. Terrifying, leap of faith, all those things are absolutely scary, but just think of where you could be. So if you're in a bad situation, relationship, job, fill in the blank, like don't worry about that much. Like go to the movie that you're not sure if you're supposed to go, or try something new, or eat a new food, or lots of small things. But I feel like just try it. Like you're just not going to do anything your whole life. So yeah, we're gonna swing by and get ice cream when it's too late, and the kids might skip school. I don't know. Live life.
Definitely, you got to live your life. And I think a lot of people are really focused on material goods these days, and they should be more focused on experiences, like trying new
Mm.
foods, going new places. I think, having that to look back on when you're older can really, really help you, live a fulfilling life.
Yeah, that's one thing I always try and think of. Like my wife sometimes gives me a hard time. She's like, "You have FOMO." And maybe I do to a certain extent, but I always think of like the deathbed, and maybe that's like gruesome. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but I want to like be able to tell stories and whatnot, you know? I want to be like, I scuba dived, I skydived, all these different things, and I've lived life. I want to get to the end and like it's peaceful and it's fine because I've done some things. Like I'm sure there'll still be places I wish I went and things I still wish I did, It's not going to be an all-inclusive list. That's insane, but like you'll feel content. You did some stuff. I feel like there's too many people, grew up in some small town in Texas, and that's no disrespect of any kind, but they're like, this is the best place ever. They never go anywhere. And they're like, this is amazing. There's nowhere else I'd rather live. Like, how do you know though? Like get out, travel, like see public transportation somewhere else, see architecture somewhere else, like the things you see. And I'm just super blessed and thankful to be in the military and, be able to travel and get pushed to different places of the world. Because I don't know if I would have left Portland. Hopefully I would have left at some point. But yeah, I think that's super important. And I think that goes back to perception again, like how we connect with other people when you travel. You are so much better, so much easier to connect with other people. You see how other people see things, how things are better in some places and how some things are worse. But I think you're able to connect with other humans much better after you travel. Even if you don't speak the language or things like that, just getting out and trying things, eating things, you definitely connect with other people better. So yeah, travel.
Definitely
That's another
do.
one.
Yeah. So if you woke up tomorrow and you knew it was your last day on Earth, what would you do with your day, your last day?
Oh shoot, I don't know. That's a tough one. Um, I don't know. I'd hang out with my family, do some fun activities. I feel like scuba or skydiving or maybe both would have to be in there.
Right.
Always funny. People are like, "Oh, which one do you like better?" Like they're just completely different. One is calm and quiet and peaceful, and the other one you're falling to the ground. So, I mean, they're just they're just different. But they're both, I mean, I think even skydiving in a certain way with a full helmet anyway, it's is sort of peaceful. You're falling at terminal velocity, so it's just like peaceful in a way. But I think I would do some of those activities that I really love to enjoy, and then after that, probably soak up the rest of the day with the family doing fun stuff. Probably involve quite a few board games, doing some of that stuff because we love to sit around the table and play games. But just soak up the love and do a few fun activities. Go grab ice cream too late, and close out the day.
Right. Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, just do all the things that you love and spend time with your loved ones. I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing you could do. So talking about skydiving, taking risks, I don't think skydiving is ever something that I would consider. I've got a healthy fear of heights, I think. I've done the indoor skydiving, but Yeah, bungee jumping or skydiving, I don't think is anything I would try. Um, but what's the biggest risk that you've taken, and how did that pay off for you?
Oh, shoot. So personally, I don't consider skydiving risky, which I'm sure is counterintuitive. But I remember I wrote a pretty lengthy Facebook post on this because it would kind of frustrate me. I would go down to skydive at Paris, but I'd have to drive 2 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And on the way there, it felt like every time I went to go drive, someone would almost kill me in my car. They changed lanes without looking. Like one lady was putting on makeup while eating a sandwich, like, and just almost hit me and all these crazy things. And so when you're at the dive zone or drop zone, sorry, drop zone, um, everybody is looking at your gear, checking it out, like making sure it works. And you're doing that on the ground, you're doing that in the airplane, you're doing it before you jump. And so, even though the activity itself, I guess, would be considered high risk, like the focus on checking double and triple checking your gear, like everybody is there to take care of each other and look after each other. And so I never felt like I felt more scared, I guess, in a certain sense in my car. So yeah, I guess that's that part of it. You said the biggest risk that I've taken.
Sounds like driving
Um,
to go down to go skydiving.
Yeah, it sounds like driving. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. Well, I threw my name in the Air Force to go from an enlisted person to an officer. That was a pretty big leap for me. It was something I really wanted to share with my dad, and unfortunately, I got to tell him before he passed away that I was going through all that. But I would have loved and still love to share the moments that I've had over the last 7 years on that. But that was definitely a big leap of faith, a large amount of responsibility increase and leadership, and a lot of things I didn't really know was on the other side. I think a lot of times we believe we know what's over there. And so I was like, oh yeah, they just go to meetings and they just do this. And we kind of downplay what the manager's doing. And then you get in the manager's seat and you're like, holy crap, like I got to do this and do that. And it's a whole extra world that, there's a lot of closed door stuff, a lot of stuff with the commander, a lot of, politics and things like that. Like you hear about it, but it's one thing to hear and another to like actually experience it where people are treating you differently or, it's a really weird world to be in the politics of it all. I think there's politics and everything, but that leap from enlisted to officer was definitely pretty crazy. Don't regret it. I love it. I love being able to help the people. Like I said, anytime I can be there on someone's bad day, and anytime I can shield some stuff from someone, which I mean we can't always do, but try our best to keep the stuff from rolling downhill. So I try to, let the bosses know, like, hey, it was me or whatever. Like, doesn't really bother me. You can, I guess, chew me out. It's not the first time I've been chewed out, been through basic training. So, they're yelling all the time. It is what it is. I guess I'll take my lashings and press on. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest risk, and it's definitely paid off. I love it. There's some lows when people are in trouble and things like that, but when you got the awards and the promotions and even, people getting degrees and, their personal goals when they're accomplished, there's just nothing better than those days. So,
Hmm. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty scary to apply to be an officer and take on all that responsibility. But it
Yeah,
sounds like you're glad that you did it.
absolutely.
So what's a small risk that you've taken that paid off in a big way?
Ooh, a small risk.
I'm gonna let you think
Um,
about that for a second. I'm gonna check on something real quick.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. I think probably, parenting is probably a pretty good example. You have to, give some risk and allow your kids to do some stuff or they're going to mess some stuff up. It's not going to hurt like, all that much. Not going to be too bad, with arts and crafts, or whatever. They get glue all over the table or spill the milk when they're trying to do cereal. But I think that pays off like massively where some people are there and they're hovering and, helicopter parent or, whatever
Yeah.
the term may be. They don't let them like mess some stuff up. It's like, what? We're gonna have to get a towel and clean it up. Yeah. But like that seems like such a minor risk for them to experience it, feel what that feels like, make sure like I don't want to do that again. So let me figure out how to get the milk out better, or let me figure out how to keep the cap on the glue better, or whatever it may be. But I think, that problem solving, that return on investment's massive for messing up the table or whatever. Like I think you had mentioned the material stuff. It's kind of crazy sometimes. Like I'm worried about this. Like you should have some nicer stuff, I think, save up and get some nice stuff. But at the same time, like it's just stuff, like whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, parenting, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't have kids myself, but I work with kids sometimes, and I'll see the parents just hovering, like you said, and just, preventing them from experiencing any kind of negativity. And it seems like it's such a the wrong thing to do. I mean, these kids aren't learning how to do things for themselves. They're not learning from their experiences. When I work with kids, I like to watch them and really let them try to do things on their own. I we did some archery this past weekend with some friends and their kids, and I was helping lead the archery. And I really like to just watch the kids and let them try to figure it out on their own. And of course, when they're pointing the arrow to the side at their friend, I'm like, okay, we got to point the arrow down range. We don't want anyone to get hurt, but just really taking that extra minute or so to let them really figure it out. I think it really builds confidence and really helps them figure things out instead of just jumping in and be like, okay, hold it like this, do this, do this. And I think that can make a really big impact on kids and even when they grow up to be adults, have them be more independent and and be able to figure things out on their own. And if they get hurt, if it's not too crazy, kind of let them, and they can learn from that experience.
Yeah, we just did my son's parent teacher conference, and one thing they're shifting to the classroom of the 21st century, or I forget what they're calling it. But one thing I thought was really cool is they'll give them a few different things to do, and then the classroom is like open, and they're supposed to go and work on these different things before they run out of time. And so instead of like do this A, B, C, they let them go and do these in whatever order they want and use the time that they have within the 40 minutes or whatever the time frame may be, as long as they get everything done, which I thought was awesome because it's back to problem solving. Like when you have a job and you need to figure out how to wake up and eat and get your stuff together and do all that, like no one tells you to do that. You need to figure out how you're going to get all those things done before you hit the door. And so I thought that was cool that they're allowed to go around as long as they accomplish the 3 or 4 tasks or whatever within the time window, you're good. We're not going to tell you A, B, C. You need to figure it out or work with Sally or Billy. And, maybe that's a project for 2 people on that one. You got to do that one by yourself. But I love that they're working towards like, more decision making. That's good. And I mean, he's only first grade, so they're doing some good stuff.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love to hear that. So, before we wrap up here, you've got your podcast, Mind Force, and is that where can people find that?
So it's on all the directories, should be on Spotify, Apple, push out to all the major directories. So hopefully it's out there. If it's not on one, let me know. I'll try to get it out, but I'm pushing out to all the bigger ones. And hopefully, the stories are helping people. I know when people are at their darkest moment, it seems like there's no hope and things like that. So I hope something they hear will resonate with somebody.
Definitely. That's really cool. I love that you're doing that. Are there any other podcasts that you enjoy listening to that are, either related to mental health or not?
Yeah, yeah. So I listened to Simon Sinek. A little bit of optimism. That one's really good. Josh White, he runs Hero Front. Yeah, he's a good friend. He lives in Florida. He just retired out of the Air Force. He's working for public affairs on Eglin Air Force Base right now. So Hero Front, definitely check them out. He does an amazing job with video and the regular podcasts as well. So Hero Front's definitely a big one for me. He was in Honor Guard, and so his is all about stories of heroes and your everyday heroes, which I think is really cool because he's got high-end generals on the show, but he's also got people that you never hear their name, but their story is super powerful for deployments, resiliency, all sorts of different stuff. So the everyday hero I think is really good. So yeah, check out Hero Front. He was the #1 veteran podcast last year. He might take it again this year, but he's got some really, really powerful stories.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
That sounds great. So where can people connect with you?
So I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, I just got on TikTok. I'm old, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah, all the social medias. And then I host the show on Buzzsprout, but it pushes out to the directory, so it should be all out there. Um, Most of them are Mindforce. I think I've got them all switched over. I started initially with Sheerius Positivity, so a play on my last name, trying to
Yeah.
do that, but I didn't want it to be focused on me. I wanted it to be about the people. So I shifted away from my last name. But yeah, Mindforce I think is out on most different platforms. So hopefully people will listen to it. I'm trying to figure out how to do the short form and the long form and whatnot. I have done some on YouTube. I don't know if people really sit and watch hour-long podcasts, but maybe they listen in the background. But yeah, trying to get it out as much as possible, just to hope help some people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it does. Just getting on here today, I really appreciate your time talking about all these issues. Mental fitness, kindness, talking about how life's too short. We should take more risks. I think that's all really important. People are, just focused on things that don't matter, and they really need to slow down, like you said, and take time to appreciate their lives and live their best life.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. It
Yeah, definitely. It was a
was
pleasure.
a good chat.
Definitely. All right. That's it. Bye, everybody.